ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय राधिकायै प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायण गोस्वामिनिति नामिने। श्री कृष्ण लीला कथने सुदक्षम औदार्य माधुर्य गुणैशयुक्तम वरम वरेण्यम पुरुषम महांतम श्रीनारायणं त्वं शिरसा नमामि। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्याय नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। श्याम सुंदर शिखंड शेखर स्मेरहास मुरली मनोहर राधिका रसिक मां कृपा निधे स्वप्रिया चरण किंकरीं कुरु। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे तन्नय माम चरनन्तिके। भक्त्या विहीनापराधलक्षै क्षिप्ताश्च कामादितरङ्गमध्यै कृपामयि त्वं शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम्। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। First of all, I offer my unlimited obeisances unto the divine lotus feet of my most worshipable spiritual master, His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My unlimited obeisances unto the divine lotus feet of Satchidanand Thakur Srila Bhaktivinod, by whose causeless mercy we have received this amazing scripture called Jaiva Dharma, and then my respects to all the assembled devotees. So, we have been studying chapter 6 of Jaiva Dharma, where the discussion is taking place between the Pandits, the Brahmins, and the Vaishnavas. Representing the Brahman community is Krishna Chudamani, and representing the Gaudiya Vaishnavas is Vaishnav Dasji. The discussion that is taking place is that are Muslims to be respected? Are they also eligible for Krishna Bhakti? Now, they may be using a particular community for discussion, but this applies to everyone. So the question really is that Sanatan Dharma, or the religion that has been propagated as per Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is this something only for a particular community, and within that community also only for people who are within a certain section like the Brahmins, or is it for everyone? And this is the reason it is so important to understand, because this establishes what is real religion. Even today, this conception within Hinduism of Sanatan Dharma is also misguided. And therefore, the scriptural evidence that Vaishnav Das ji is giving are so important, because everything has to be based on proper evidence, and the scriptures are the real evidence. Many religions have come at a certain point in time. They've started, so if you see their history, they started 1,000, 2,000, or 3,000 years ago. But when it comes to the Vedic religion or Sanatan Dharam, the word Sanatan itself means eternal. It did not start at a certain point in time, and therefore it is applicable to everyone. So last time Vaishnav Das ji, he quoted many verses from Srimad Bhagavatam where Krishna is telling Udhav that if a person is one pointedly devoted to me, then even if he has some unwanted desires in his heart, because of weakness of heart, right, from time immemorial, we have been enjoying, we have this propensity. So overnight, one cannot become a pure devotee. So he says there is no problem. Even if one sometimes slips, as long as he, within his heart, he condemns that behavior, he understands that what he did was wrong, and he prays to the Lord and continues performing one pointed devotional service in the association of the devotees, then he certainly will become purified. Why? Because Krishna says, I will come and sit in his heart, and all his anarthas, unwanted desires, will be rooted out from the root itself. So then Chudamani, when he heard all these scriptural evidence, now he gives a very interesting argument. He says, well, you are quoting from Srimad Bhagavatam. What if I do not accept Bhagavatam as evidence? And this is the case with many pundits, or specifically the impersonalists. They do not accept Bhagavatam, even though Bhagavatam is the conclusive scripture written by Srila Maharshi Vedvyas. So they accept other books, specifically the Vedas and the Vedanta Sutras. Everything is written by Maharshi Vedvyas, but they do not accept Srimad Bhagavatam. Now he is saying, well, I do not accept Srimad Bhagavatam. And then Vaishnav Das ji says, well, even if you do not accept Srimad Bhagavatam, that does not mean that what I'm saying is incorrect, because this is the conclusion of all the scriptures. Even other scriptures, they also say the same thing. In fact, if we read the scriptures properly, whatever Puran, even if we read the Vedanta, if we read them properly and understand the meaning, then we will come to the same conclusion. Then he says, now, what is the point of quoting from many, many different scriptures? Let me quote from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because even if one is a jnani, if one is a pandit, one is a yogi, one may be following any particular type of faith. Bhagavad Gita is one scripture that everyone accepts. Bhagavata many times they don't accept because there are pastimes of Krishna, and they don't accept Krishna as the Supreme Lord. So they say all those pastimes are just imaginary. So they don't accept Bhagavatam. But when it comes to Bhagavad Gita, it is pure philosophy. Even if they don't accept Krishna as Lord speaking to Arjun, and they do not accept that this Bhagavad Gita was actually spoken on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, any such war took place. But as far as the philosophy is concerned, they can't refute that. And Adi Shankaracharya himself, who is the propounder of impersonalistic philosophy or the Advaitism, he himself in Gita Mahatmyam, he composed beautiful verses glorifying Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And there he says, Gita Sugita Kartavya Kim Anya Shastra Vistarahi. He says, one should just read Bhagavad Gita. What is the point of reading all other scriptures? Because then he says, Saha Yah Swayam Padmanabhasya Mukh Padmadvinihi Sritaha. He says this Gita was spoken from the lotus mouth of Shri Krishna himself. So the propounder of Advaitism himself is saying Gita must be accepted. In fact, if you can't read anything else, just read Bhagavad Gita. So, and then Gita is considered the essence of all the Vedic scriptures. And Adi Shankaracharya in this Gita Mahatmyam only says, Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogda Gopal Nandanaha Partha Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Gita Amritam Mahat Dugdam Gita Amritam Mahat. So he says, Sarvopanishado Gavo, all the Upanishads, all the Vedic scriptures are like the cows. And Dogda Gopalanandanaha, the cowherd boy who's milking these cows is Shri Krishna. And he says the calf is Arjun, who's relishing the milk. Milk is what? Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all the scriptures. So he says, let me quote from Bhagavad Gita. And he says, in fact, all the instructions are present in the Gita shlok that you uttered when you arrived here. So if you recall, when the Pandit had arrived, so at that time, they quoted a verse from Bhagavad Gita, and that time we had discussed that the meaning that they gave of that verse was actually incorrect. And that verse is, let me share it here. This is from the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse number 30th. And very, very important verse. It says, Api chet suduracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadhur ev sa mantavyah samyak vyavasito hi saha. So we discussed it before also. It says, Api chet suduracharo, even if one is engaged, is performing very abominable activities. Durachar means abominable activities, sinful things. Sudurachar, very sinful things. But Krishna says, Bhajate ma, ma means me. Ananya bhak means that with one pointed devotion, he is worshipping me. Sadhur ev sahamantavya. Therefore, such a person must be accepted as a sadhu, as a saintly person. Why? Because he has full faith. With full faith, he is worshipping me exclusively. Now, Krishna here clearly is saying, who is a sadhu? Bhajate mam ananya bhak, who's worshipping me with one pointed devotion. Even though before, this is in the 9th chapter, before this he has described in the previous chapters about Karam Yoga, he describes about Dhyan Yogis in the 6th chapter, he has described about Gyan Yogis, but he is not saying that if any one of those practitioners, if they perform abominable activities, they should be considered sadhu. He's specifically calling only the devotees. Bhajate mam, who's doing bhakti of Krishna is a devotee. And also there he points Ananya Bhak with one pointed devotion. So he says, Krishna, Vaishnavdas says, that the purport of this shlok is that the system of varnashram that belongs to Karam Kand is one type of path, right? Similarly, those who follow the path of knowledge, Gyan Kand, is another type of path. But those who have faith in Hari Katha and Hari Nam, that develops in satsang is a third type of path. So all these three paths sometimes seem to converge. Sometimes it appears they're all separate systems. And they also are known by different names, as you also know, Karam Yogis, Gyan Yogis, Bhakti Yogis. But he says what Krishna is saying in this verse, that among all those yogis, as I was saying, the Bhakti Yogi is the best, because it is only by the process of Bhakti Yoga, one who is engaged in exclusive one-pointed devotion, that one can be actually purified. So he says, then again, this is not the only verse from Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is saying that. There are other verses as well. So there is another verse in Bhagavad Gita which is in the 6th chapter, verse number 47. And here Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham mat gaten antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yogam sa me yukta tamo mataha. So he's saying Yoginam api sarvesham. See, again, he is so clearly saying there is no ambiguity about what Krishna is saying. It is only the misinterpretations. And this applies, I would say, even in other religions, that what was originally spoken has been misinterpreted, which causes confusion and all kind of deviations, and then conflicts among different groups. But any true religion will not cause these kind of conflicts, right? So here Krishna is again clearly saying yoginam api sarvesham. Yoginam, sarvesham means all. Yoginam is a plural word. So yogi is singular, yoginam means plural. So all kind of yogis, any type of yoga system that you can think of. He says among all those types of yogis, mat gaten antaratmana. So he says those who are devoted to me, mat gaten atmana. So here see he uses all these words mat, aham, and in the previous verse he says mam. So these are all coming from the Sanskrit root word called asmat, which means I. So Krishna is clearly indicating devotion to himself. He's speaking these verses standing in front of Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So he's clearly stating that one who is worships me with great faith, Shraddhavan Bhajate. He's again saying, and later on we will discuss in detail what does Shraddha or faith mean. So not just someone who is worshipping with some ulterior motives, but someone with Shraddha who is worshipping, he says, his mind deeply absorbed in loving attachment to me, such a person is the topmost yogi. Now, he's again not making any distinction whether such a person is from a certain caste, a certain community, a certain country, a certain color, a certain different religion. No. The only qualification he is giving, two qualifications: one who worships me one pointedly, and the second qualification that worship is with faith. And then he says, quotes two other verses from the 9th chapter, the 31st verse, where he says, Kshipram bhavati dharmatma, shashvat shantim nigachati, kante pratijanihi name bhaktah pranashati. A beautiful verse. This is something we should always remember, because this gives us that strong faith, because Krishna himself is saying, Kante pratijanihi, O Arjun, name bhakta pranashati, that my devotee will never fall down, will never perish. He will never be destroyed. What that means, that bhakti, the process of bhakti, that sadhan he is doing, of course, as long as he's doing without committing any offenses, that bhakti, whatever he is doing, it will never go waste. It will never be destroyed. Krishna says in the 2nd chapter also, na abhikram nashasti pratyavaya na bhuyate swalpam api asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. That on this path there is no loss, there is no diminution. So every time you're chanting the holy name of Krishna, every time going to the temple, doing some seva, serving the Vaishnavas, so any type of devotional service that we are performing, he's saying it will never go waste. And what to talk of doing it wholeheartedly? He says even if one performs this little bit, it will help him from the greatest danger. His bhakti will never be destroyed. And he says, Kshipram bhavati dharmatma. Very soon, such a person will be, and when he's saying very soon, because before this, he spoke the verse number 30th, where he was saying, Apichet suduracharo, someone, even if he's performing many sinful activities. So right after that, he says this verse, because then someone may say, oh, well, if someone is performing these sinful activities, then how much time will it take? Even if he's doing your one-pointed devotion to become pure, he says, Kshipram bhavati dharmatma. Very soon, he will become a devotee. He will become a dharmatma, means his heart will be completely purified. Now, when we say Kshipram, now this Kshipram is in the eternal time frame. So if compared to millions and billions or trillions of lifetimes that we have lived, performing all kind of nonsense activities, now if we become purified, now that we are on this path, Gurudev would say, even if it takes you 10, 20, 30 lifetimes, that is actually very quick, kshipram, right? And this is for sure that one who has now is on the path and following it very sincerely, then he would certainly achieve the highest destination, liberation from this world and the abode of the Lord. So he's saying Shipram Bhavati. So Vaishnav Das ji says that he will be quickly purified of all faults in their nature and behavior. He says, he's telling Krishna Chudamani that please try to understand this verse very carefully, because Krishna is clearly saying that one who is faithful, he will quickly be purified of all faults. So if you are saying that someone who is not born in a Brahman family, he has jati dosh, they are outside the Vedic system of varnas, and without taking birth in such a family, that defect cannot be removed. So here Krishna is saying very quickly purified of all faults in their nature and behavior. So it can happen in one lifetime. Of course, the process has started. Now, when Gurudev is saying 10, 20 lives, he's basically saying coming to the highest point of Swarupa Siddhi. So purification happens very quickly, right? The unwanted desires start going away, anartha nivritti. So in the process of bhakti, ado, shraddha, tata, sadhu, sang, bhajan, kriya, anartha nivritti. So purification starts happening very quickly. So when I'm saying, quoting Gurudev, that may take certain lifetimes, so that is coming to the stage of prema. So that it may not happen in one lifetime. It may take 1, 2, 3 lifetimes, but the process of purification starts right away. So he says, see, because dharma, if you think about what is dharma, dharma is religion or the words spoken by the Lord himself. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. So someone who is a bhakta, someone who is devoted to the Lord, so dharma is nothing but devotion to the Lord, because Bhagwan is the root of everything. He is the root of all the dharma, and he is easily conquered by bhakti. Damodar bhakti baddham. He nowhere in any scripture it is written that the supreme is controlled by someone's severe austerities, or by someone performing great pious activities, or someone performing very deep meditation. So yes, many rishis and even demons, they performed meditation for hundreds and thousands of years, but all they got was probably a celestial voice that asked them, what benediction do you want? And whatever they asked for, someone asked for some mystical power, someone asked for a long life, of different things. If you read the the Puranas, there's so many such pastimes are there. But nobody was able to control the Lord like Mother Yashoda, who was able to bind Krishna. So Krishna only gets controlled by the devotees, by devotion. So he says that as soon as one's heart, and Krishna comes and sits in the heart, Bhagwan is established in the heart, Maya, who binds the jiva in illusion, is immediately dissipated. Why? Because wherever Krishna is, Krishna Surya Sam, Maya hai andhakar. Jahan Krishna, taha nahi Maya adhikar. Wherever Krishna is, because he is like sun. So when sun is there, there cannot be any darkness. Darkness means absence of sunlight. So when the sunlight is there, darkness has to disappear. So when Krishna is there in the heart, so basically what that means, if one is chanting the holy name, one is following the devotional principles, and with that, as the Lord is firmly established in one's heart, then there is no possibility of illusion being there. So when there is no Maya, when there is no such thing, then one is purified. There is no defect of any type. So, and he says that the moment one's desires for mundane sense enjoyments have dissipated, peace pervades the heart. Such a person becomes very, very peaceful. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it states, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakale Ashant, Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Ataiv Shant. Those who are aspiring for sense enjoyment, and those who are even aspiring for mukti or liberation, they are always ashant. They are not peaceful. But Krishna Bhakta Nishkam, a devotee of the Lord, has no such desires. Therefore, he is very peaceful. In fact, it is the desire for sense enjoyment that is the cause of all our miseries, all the frustration, and all the stress and anxiety that people experience today. Many of us, you can recall, the times of your parents and or your grandparents. They were so peaceful. They didn't have a lot of things for sense enjoyment. Neither did they aspire for a lot of things, because first, not much was available, and they lived very simple lives, and they were very happy, very peaceful. Nowadays we have so much, right? Unlimited number of things available for sense enjoyment. And are people becoming more happy? No, there is the stress and anxiety levels are increasing. So he's saying such people are never happy. It is only a bhakta who is nishkam. He becomes peace pervades the heart of such a devotee. And therefore, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita also says, Shaknoti ihi ev yah sodhum prak sharir vimokshanat tam krodh udbhavam vegam sahayukta sa sukhinarah. That one who is able to control the urges which are born because of lust and anger. Kam krodh udbhavam vegam. Vegam means urges. So because of lust and anger, someone who is able to control is, he says, sahayuktah sa sukhinara. Such a person is in trance, and he's always peaceful and happy. So Krishna is saying, my devotee will never perish because I am situated in his heart. The karmis and jnanis may fall prey to bad association in the course of practicing the sadhana because they are independent. But the bhaktas do not fall down because the influence of Sri Hari's presence saves them from bad association. So see, this is the reason why bhakti is so special, because bhakti means that we accept Bhagwan as our benefactor. He is the one that you are surrendered to. He accept him as your master. So therefore, now it is his responsibility to take care of you. Whereas those who are on the path of Gyan Yoga or Dhyan Yoga or Karam Yoga, they don't accept him as their supreme master. So Krishna, even though Bhagavad Gita, he says that I am equal to everyone. Na me dveshya na priyaha. Nobody, I don't hate anyone, and nobody is dear to me. But at the same time, he says, one who is my devotee, I have a special love for my devotees because they are aspiring for his loving devotional service. Now, when Chudamani hears all of this, well, he's certainly running out of arguments, so he tries to change the subject. First, he says, well, whatever is written in the scriptures, so he's saying there are provisions found in our scriptures for determining caste by birth. To me, that seems to be superior. So he's still not accepting. But he says that I cannot understand how Shraddha develops, how faith develops. Because according to him, Shraddha only comes, first of all, he doesn't believe much in faith, right? Because according to him, it is simply by one's birth. And whatever the verses that were being quoted from Bhagavad Gita, so now he's questioning the point of faith itself. Because in those verses, Krishna is saying that one who worships me with faith, even if he is born in a lowly family, irrespective of what background he has, he becomes purified. So now he's questioning the Shraddha itself, of how Shraddha develops. So Vaishnav Dasji says that Shraddha is the living entity's Nitya Swabhav, its eternal nature. But faith in the performance of Varnashram duties does not arise from eternal nature. Rather, it arises from Nimittik Swabhav, the circumstantial or temporary nature. So the point is, anything that we do in life, it is only because we have faith in that thing. We don't do anything in our life without faith. So he first quotes from Chandogya Upanishad, where it says, Yada vai shraddhyati athamanute. I won't read the whole verse, but here Sanat Kumar is saying that when a person develops Shraddha, Shraddha again means faith, he can think about a subject and understand it, whereas one cannot do without faith. Indeed, only a person who has faith can reflect upon anything. Therefore, you must inquire very specifically about faith. So, see, everything depends on faith, right? Our learning starts with faith. A child goes to kindergarten, and the teacher on the whiteboard, the first lesson, she writes the alphabet A, two lines, slanting lines with a straight line in between. And she says, my dear students, this is A. And everyone accepts this is A. Then she says B and C. And because they accepted that those are alphabets, therefore, and this is how they are pronounced, then when she helps, then she connects those letters, and then she says CAT is cat, DOG is dog, right? So because they accepted that A, B, C, D as alphabets, those characters as alphabets, now they are able to learn the words. Once they learn the words, then they learn how to make sentences and the grammar, and the learning continues. Just imagine if the child in the first lesson says, oh, I don't have faith that this letter is called A or this letter is called B. How do I say it? I don't have faith. Will he ever learn the alphabets or the words and the sentences? No, because he has no faith. You know, we are all sitting in our homes with the faith that the person who has constructed the building followed all the standards of construction, and therefore the ceiling on the in the room will not fall on our head. If you didn't have that faith, you would not be able to sit in your rooms or sleep peacefully in your house. So the point is, everything that we do with faith. But what do we have faith in? That's what the issue is. So he says the faith itself is the eternal nature of the living entity. But that faith is now misappropriated. When someone has faith in the performance of Varnashram duties because of misconception, because of other desires, then it is not because of the eternal nature, it is because of that temporary nature. So this is what we've been discussing from the beginning. This is called the acquired nature. So again, remember the example of the water and the ice. So because of the acquired nature, our faith is also now not pure as it was, which is of the pure soul. So then he says that some people who are learned in the conclusions of the scriptures have explained that the word Shraddha means to have faith in the Vedas and in the words of Sri Guru. So, you know, just to have faith in the words of the scriptures and what the spiritual master is saying, that is called faith, which is a good definition, but an incomplete definition. Why? Because scriptures say many things, and therefore someone may develop all kind of ideas. Yesterday at a satsang program, I was talking to one devotee, and he said, I was, he was born in India in a devout family. So he said, even before I went to the college, because there were people in his house He was born in a religious place, and many of there were Brahmins, and many Pandits were coming. So he had read all the Puranas, but he says, I was confused even after reading all the Puranas, because he didn't really had a real guru and had not associated with the devotees. So now he says that the meaning that one should have faith in the word of the scriptures is not wrong, but it is not entirely clear. So in our sampradaya, in our disciplic succession, the word Shraddha is defined as follows. Shraddha tu anyopaya varjam bhakti unmukhi chit vritti visheshaha. So what does this mean? He says, faith is the characteristic function of the heart that strives towards bhakti alone, which is totally devoid of karam and gyan, and which desires nothing other than the exclusive pleasure of Krishna. So he says, this faith, that when one becomes completely convinced that there is no path other than the path of bhakti, and all my endeavors should be for in a favorable mood for the exclusive pleasure of the Lord, then this is real Shraddha. So there's a very beautiful verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'll share this, which describes what Shraddha means. It says, Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kahe Sudr Nishchay Krishne Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Krit Hoy. So he says in Chaitanya Charitamrita, this is when Sriman Mahaprabhu is instructing, I think this is in in the 22nd chapter in Sanatan Shiksha. He is giving instructions to Sri Sanatan Goswami. And there he says, Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kahe Sudrar Nishchay. Sudrar Nishchay means firm determination. So this faith that gives that us firm determination that Krishna Bhakti Kaile, if I am performing devotional service to Krishna, Sarva Karma Krit Hoy, then everything is taken care of, because within that everything is included. I don't have to perform any other type of tapasya, austerities, or any other type of yoga system. So he says this is real Shraddha. With this type of Shraddha, when the devotee, when the practitioner, he associates with the sadhus, a conviction arises in his heart that he cannot obtain his eternal welfare by the methods of karma, gyan, and yoga, and so on, and that he has no means of success unless he takes exclusive shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Hari. He says, when such a conviction appears, then one can understand that real faith has arisen in the heart. See, I, in my many years in this path, have met many devotees, and I can say that there are those who very quickly develop this clarity and faith. But then there are others, and this is, where they still keep attachments to all of the different systems. So that's where the faith stays very weak. Unless the faith is strong, it's almost like the fuel, right? So if the faith is strong, then you will move forward much faster. But if the faith, oh yes, the scripture says, Guruji says, Krishna is supreme and everyone is within him. Brahm Samhita says, Bhagavatam says, but you know what? I also like to worship this. I also like to do this. I also like to do this other fast. So that faith is still very komal. It's not very firm. So he says, but one who develops that faith, then he makes progress. And what is the symptom of that faith? So he says, Sacha Sharanapati Lakshana, Shraddha is characterized as an external symptom of surrender to Sri Hari. And what does that surrender means? Sharanagati. Then he quotes another very beautiful verse from from Hari Bhakti Vilas. This is actually one verse. Many of these verses, very good. If we, I think, yeah, if you try and memorize some of these verses, especially this one, what surrender means. So he says, Anukulasya sankalpaha प्रतिकूलस्य वर्जनम रक्षयिष्यति इति विश्वासः गोप्तृत्वे वर्णम तथा आत्मनिक्षेप कार्पण्य शतविधा शरणागति. So explaining 6 aspects of sharanagati or surrender. First is anukulasya sankalpaha, that I will only engage in those activities that are favorable for bhakti, and those are described in great detail. Pratikulasya varjanam, anything that is unfavorable for bhakti, I will not engage in those activities. So that's why at the time of initiation, we take a vow to abstain from 4 specific type of activities, and then from any kind of bad association. So anything which is unfavorable to bhakti, I will not do. So this is the parameter of a devotee, what to do and not to do. What is favorable, I will do wholeheartedly. What is unfavorable, I will not engage in it. And then the third symptom of surrender is rakshayishyati iti vishwasaha. He has firm faith that Krishna will protect me. Just like Prahlad, right? So now this faith will develop gradually, but the more one develops this faith, the mood of surrender becomes stronger. Goptritve varnam tatha. So this means that Krishna will take care of me, right? Because Krishna, when he's the Supreme Lord, from an ant to an elephant, if he takes care, he will also take care of me. Of course, I have to do my responsibility, whatever I am required to do, but not unnecessarily worrying all the time, right? So just like the people in the material world are always worrying about, right? Always worrying about this thing, that thing, how I will get that, how will I will, acquire that other thing. What if this happens? What if I lose that? All kind of worries people are, especially nowadays because of economy and everything that's happening in the world. So many worries are there. But a devotee knows that as long as the material world is there, we are in the material world, these worries will never come to an end. But whatever I need for my sustenance to continue on the path of bhakti, Krishna will take care. Krishna, because he gives again this, his word in Bhagavad Gita, Ananya Chintayanto Mam Ye Janah Pariyupasate Tesham Satat Abhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahamiham. Ananya, again he uses the word Ananya, someone who's one pointedly worshipping me. Ananya Chintayanto Mam Ye Janah Pariyupasate. He says, Yogakshemam Vahamiham. For such my surrendered devotees, whatever yog means, whatever they don't have, I will provide. Kshema means whatever they have, I will maintain. So this is the fourth thing. And then the sixth is Atma Nikshep, means fully surrendered. Atma Nivedan. By our mind, by our words, by our heart, by all our activities. And then it says Karpanya. Karpanya means humility. So humility means that even with all this, he maintains this mood that I am so fallen and wretched. So that mood of humility is always there in the heart of a devotee. So these are all. So if by performing bhakti one is becoming very proud and puffed up, that means he's still not surrendered. Because real bhakti will bring the mood of genuine humility in a devotee. So he says all of these are the symptoms of sharanagati, which is, and Shraddha is the external symptom of sharanagati or surrender to Sri Hari. So he says, when these moods become established in the heart, a disposition arises that is called Shraddha. A jiva who has this Shraddha is eligible for bhakti. And now, very important thing he says, this is the first stage in the development of the swabhav or the nature like that of those pure jivas who are eternally liberated. So he says those, the eternally liberated, associates of the Lord. So now on this path, right, what is our goal? To become eternally liberated, and not liberated because we want, and this is where the difference, we also use the word liberation, but the mood of a devotee to become liberated is not liberation from the miseries of this world. That's what a jnani or a yogi is aspiring for. They want to leave this material world so that they can eternally serve the Lord in the spiritual abode. Of course, the devotee, even if he's in this world, he's still engaged. So even then, he doesn't worry. Wherever the Lord keeps me, he's happy. So, but they are on this path of becoming the eternal associates, and he says this is the first stage. This manifestation, or this arising of this type of faith or shraddha, this is the first stage in the development of that nature, which is like the nature of those who are eternally liberated personalities. So then Chudamani says, oh, I understand, but you still have not explained what Shraddha is. And then he tries to give another argument. He says, if Shraddha comes from performing pious activities or satkarma, virtuous deeds, then my argument is still stronger, because Shraddha cannot arise without properly performing the satkarma or and swadharma of varnashrams. And since Muslims do not perform satkarma or the virtuous deeds, how can they be eligible for bhakti? So he's again trying to mince words, misinterpret things, and again trying to prove his point. Now he's trying to say, well, if Shraddha only comes from virtuous deeds, then how can they even develop that faith which makes one, perform bhakti and become purified? Now Vaishnav Das Ji explains that where does Shraddha come from? He says, it is a fact that Shraddha comes from Sukriti. But what Sukriti? And then he quotes a verse from Brith Naradiya Puran that we have read before also, where it says, Bhakti tu Bhagavad Bhaktah Sangen Parijayate Sat Sangha Prapyate Pumbhi Sukritahi Purva Sanchitaha. He says that the inclination for bhakti is awakened by association with Bhagwan's devotees. And when the jiva obtains the association of Shuddh Bhaktas, how does one? So bhakti comes from association. And how does one get association? That association comes from Sukritahi Purva Sanchitahi. Sukriti means pious deeds which are associated with bhakti, and Purva means past, Sanchitahi means accumulated. So from past accumulated Sukritis, one becomes qualified to associate with devotees. So you may recall we discussed this before, that if you want to purchase something, you need to have enough money. So you need to accumulate enough money to purchase something. So similarly, to get association of pure devotees, one accumulates this Sukriti. And what are these Sukritis? Knowingly or unknowingly doing something which is in relation to bhakti. And we have given examples in the past. Someone invites you to the temple because they are performing a yagya for their marriage anniversary, or they are doing some mundan sanskar. We just had this at the temple yesterday. So now, because you are their friend, you are invited, you go there. You don't go to the temples, but you still go there. And because it's a Vaishnav temple, after performing this ceremony, they perform some kirtan, and then there was someone who gave a lecture on Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, and you had no option just to sit there. But even though this activities were done unwillingly, not willingly, this is Sukriti, because these were things that were associated with bhakti, linked with bhakti. So now this, over many lifetimes, when this is accumulated, then one becomes eligible to associate with devotees. Now an important distinction he makes. He says Sukriti is of two types. There is Sukriti Nitya and Nimittik. Just like Dharma is Nitya and Nimittik, Shraddha is Nitya and Nimittik. Similarly, Sukriti is also Nitya means and Nimittik. Now he explains what is this. He says there is Nitya Sukriti, meaning those types of pious activities or virtuous deeds which bear eternal fruit. And then, and that gives sadhu sangha and bhakti. And then there are Nimittik Sukriti, which actually are meaning anitya or temporary. They bear only temporary results that depend on some cause, and it leads to material enjoyment and impersonal liberation. So he distinguishes between these two types. Now he gives another very important explanation, and this is something to understand. A very lot of time again, there's confusion about this concept. Now he says many people think that mukti is eternal, right? So what the jnanis or the yogis are aspiring for, people say, oh, I just want to become liberated, I want mukti. He says many people think mukti is eternal, but this is only because they do not know the actual nature of mukti. The individual soul is pure, eternal, and primeval. The cause of the living entity's bondage is association with Maya, and Mukti's complete dissolution of this bondage. The act of deliverance or release from bondage is accomplished in a single moment. So the act of release is not in itself an eternal action. So try to understand this again. What is really mukti? Mukti is liberation from bondage. And how does that happen? He says that that is a specific point in time that it will happen. Even if someone who's just trying to become merge with the the all-pervading Brahman, and that's the type of mukti is aspiring for. So the liberation is a point in time. Just like if one is in the prison and he is doing everything, being good character, working in the prison so that he can be freed, and he has a certain sentence, certain time that he has to do it, and at some point, he's done everything, and he is now, the judge proves that he can be freed from the prison. So the act of becoming freed from the prison is the point when he walks out of the prison house, right? Before that, whatever he was doing was to get to that point. Now he walks out of the prison into the free thing, the free world outside. So that is the point of mukti. So all consideration of mukti ends as soon as emancipation is attained. Just like once he's outside, then there is no point of becoming free from the prison because he's out from the prison, right? So he says, so mukti is nothing more than the destruction of a material cause. Therefore, since mukti is only the negation of a temporary material cause, it is causal and temporary. So, a little bit maybe I hope it's clear what he's saying. Since mukti is only the freedom from the bondage, there's a cause, there's a reason behind it. Therefore, it is only temporary. But then, and therefore, those who just aspire for liberation like that, if you ask them what would you do after becoming liberated, he has no idea. Just like, if you ask someone, okay, now you are going to be freed from the prison, what would you do? And he just starts rolling his eyes and can't tell you what to do. Then will say, you want to come out of the prison, you are working so hard to come out, and you don't even know what you would do once you go out. But then there is another person, he says, well, when I come out of the prison, I will go to my home, my wife will be waiting, my children will be waiting for them. And it was because of that desire, my love for them, that I want to be reunited with them, that I was working so hard to try and get my prison sentence commuted earlier, right? That is person who has a specific plan after he comes out of the prison. So he says that this is the case of the devotees. On the other hand, it is the attachment, rati, for the feet of Sri Hari which never ends once it is established in the heart of the jiva. Therefore, this rati or bhakti is nitya dharma. And if we analyze its practices correctly, none of them can be called temporary. So he says, for a devotee, liberation is not the important. It is the attachment to Sri Hari's lotus feet, the desire to render loving devotional service unto him. He says that type of bhakti, because as we had discussed before, you know, even the Brahmavadis, even the Dhyan yogis also perform bhakti in the sense they sing bhajans. They may also be worshipping some form of the Lord. So they do panchupasana. So they worship different forms. But he says that type of bhakti terminates at the point it bestows mukti, because their goal was only to get to the point of mukti. Therefore, it is only a type of nimittik karma. This we had discussed before as well. But while bhakti that is present before, during, and after mukti is a distinct and eternal truth, and it is the nitya dharma. So he's again distinguishing this type of bhakti, which inculcates attachment to the Lord, comes by performing sukritis, which are nitya sukriti as he called, those activities that are in related to bhakti. Then he quotes a verse from Mundak Upanishad, again a very, very important verse, where he says, Pariksha lokan karma chitan brahmanoho nirvedam ayan na asti akritah kriten tat vignanartham sah gurum ev abhigachet samit parhi shrotriyam brahm nishtham. So this actually is a verse that describes the qualification of someone and how one should approach a spiritual master for initiation. And what the gist of this verse is that if one who has exhaustively studied the scriptures and then ultimately becomes disinterested in all kind of fruitive activities by understanding their temporary nature, and even if through that he attains heavenly planets, he understands that all of that is temporary and ultimately leads to misery. Therefore, he this is so because the Nitya Vastu, Bhagwan, is the eternal reality and is beyond the reach of karma. He understands that I cannot attain the Lord by performing all these kind of temporary activities. And then to gain real knowledge and realization of that eternal supreme person, then he should find a qualified guru who is learned in the Vedas, who is firmly established in the service of Bhagwan and who knows the absolute truth. Then one should approach such a spiritual master. So like this, he explains the difference between Nitya Sukriti, which bears eternal fruits, and Nimittik Sukriti, which only bears temporary fruits. And it is the Nitya Sukriti that leads to that faith by which one associates with the devotees. So in here, he explained that what is Nitya Sukriti? He says it is the association of devotees and contact with acts of devotion, as we have been discussing. So then Krishna Chudamani, and this is the last question we will discuss today, and then Krishna Chudamani asks, then what is this Bhakta Sangha? What is this association of the devotees and Bhakti Kriya, or the activities that are related to devotion? Please explain that. So Vaishnav Das then explains that Bhakta Sangha means conversing with devotees, pure devotees, serving them and hearing their discourses. So how does one associate with the devotees? By serving them, by hearing from them, and by having conversations with them. In Upadesha Amrit, Sri Rupa Goswami also describes that how devotees associate with each other. Dadati prati grihnati Guhyam akhyati prichati bhungte bhojayate shatvid priti lakshana. That 6 different ways: by exchanging gifts, by giving and accepting, and then by asking questions and then responding to others' questions. So sitting together and discussing about Krishna. Krishna says in Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita also, mat chitta matgat pranaha bodhayanta parasparam When my devotees sit, what do they talk about? Not about politics or this and that. Mat chitta mat gat prana bodhayanta parasparam. They talk about my pastimes. They talk Hari Katha. So as you can see, whenever the devotees meet, we spend all the time, we together sit, we do kirtan, we do Hari Katha, and then we sit and honor prasadam together, do arti together. So it says these are all the activities which is called Bhakta Sangha. And should bhaktas, pure devotees, perform the activities of bhakti such as public congregational chanting of Sri Nam. So we go out on Nagar Sankirtan. Participation in these activities or performing them on one's own is called bhakti kriya, activities that are acts of devotion, because they have contact with acts of devotion. So he says then Shastra also explain that bhakti kriya consists of activities such as cleaning the temples of Sri Hari, offering a lamp to Tulsi, observing fasts like Ekadashi, Janmashtami. Such activities create sukriti that nourishes devotion, even if one performs them accidentally or without pure faith. So this is what I was, before giving that example of a person coming to the temple, doesn't have faith, but, out of force did it. But he says this still adds to the account of Sukriti. And once there's enough Sukriti, then one actually develops some faith to associate with the devotees. When this Sukriti acquires strength after many lifetimes, Shraddha for Sadhu Sang and exclusive devotion develops. So then he says that every type of object, Vastu, has some power, has some potency, right? So like even in the physics, we study gravitational pull, that every object has some sort of a pull, has some potency to attract other things. So he says this is the inherent potency of that substance. So every object has certain potency. The potency, and similarly, every activity has certain potency. The potency to nourish bhakti is found only within the activities of bhakti. These activities produce Sukriti even if they are performed indifferently. And then he quotes a very beautiful verse from the Prabhas Khand, and this is also quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas. And this verse says, Madhuram Madhuram etat mangalam mangalanam सकल निगम वली सत्फलम चित स्वरूपम सकृत अपि परिगीतम श्रद्धया हेलयावा भृगुवर नरमात्रम तारयत कृष्ण नाम. So he says madhuram madhuram etat mangalanam. So describing that the holy names of the Lord are sweet. They are the sweetest among all of them. Madhuram madhuram etat, and the most auspicious among everything that is auspicious. Sakal Nigam Vali Satphalam Chit Swarupam. They are the ripened spiritual fruit of the wish fulfilling tree of the Vedas. And then it says Sakrit Api Parigitam. So if one chants them, Shraddhaya means with faith, Helaya means even with some, in an abusive way, with no faith in it. So devotees are, I was giving this example yesterday. Many times, especially in India, when we go doing Nagar Sankirtan, here we go out in open, in parks, but in India, we go in streets. And these are very, very congested streets and houses on both the sides. So, and then as you are going, you're doing Nagar Sankirtan, and there we, of course, also so many devotees are there. So, Kirtan sound. And now someone is sitting in their house and they're watching, a TV, a show, and hears this kirtan party going, feels disturbed, comes out on the balcony and shouts from the house, "Why are you coming every day here and chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna?" Now he said it out of anger, said it out of avahelana, meaning saying out of no faith, right? Almost in an abusive way, but still chanted the names Krishna, still chanted the name Ram. He also heard the holy name. So he says, even if this is chanted without faith, Taret Krishna Nam, the holy name will deliver a person. Deliver a person, how? Because he has also earned some sukriti. And this sukriti will slowly, as accumulates, will, and I have so many examples I've seen where people who like this first, and we don't have time, otherwise would have told a nice story. So people, by even sometimes just people, hearing this holy name, or someone taking prasadam, every coming by, someone coming by giving prasadam, slowly develop that faith and started then associating with the devotees. So he says there's all types of sukriti that nourish bhakti are nitya sukriti. And one develops when the sukriti becomes strong, one develops unalloyed bhakti and attains sadhu sang. So now he says a very important statement. He says birth in a Muslim family, and again, this, he's using the word Muslim, but this applies to any type of birth in any family. He said that is the result of namitic dushkriti, because of the types of activities that we have performed in the previous lives. We take birth in a certain family. But whereas the faith in one pointed devotion is the result of eternal pious deeds. What is surprising about this? So we may take birth in a certain family because we have done some bad activities, but at the same time, maybe even accidentally, by hearing the holy name in the previous lives, we have also accumulated some sukriti, because of which some shraddha may develop towards bhakti in this life. So he says there is no surprising. So taking birth in a certain family does not preclude one from becoming eligible on the path of pure bhakti. So he gives again, as you can see, so many beautiful. So again, throughout this chapter, what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is establishing, the supremacy of bhakti and its independence. It is not dependent on any type of pious activities. So pious activities are different from sukriti. It is not dependent on any type of birth. It is not dependent on any type of austerities, any type of previous other types of sadhan, gyan, karam, nothing it is dependent on. Bhakti is supremely independent. Again, the only qualification is one has faith, and that faith comes from accumulation of sukritis in the previous lives. So we will stop here and see if anyone has any questions or comments.
I have a question, Prabhuji.
Yes,
You spoke about the impersonalists accepting the Vedas, the Vedanta, the Bhagavad Gita, and not the Srimad Bhagavatam. Is there some type of debate concerning its authorship, or is it something else, some other reason why they don't accept the Bhagavatam?
Yeah, so sometimes they many times don't accept many of the Puranas because they say that they have been changed, or they do not because they do not accept the pastimes of the Lord, right? They think that these are all they call it mythology. These are all just mythological stories, and they never really happened. So they are more focused on just the philosophical aspects, which is there in the Vedas, in the Upanishads, in the Vedanta, and in the Bhagavad Gita. So they accept Bhagavad Gita, but sometimes they would not accept Bhagavad Gita as part of Mahabharata. They don't even accept the rest of it. They just accept Bhagavad Gita. There are faiths in India who do not accept Krishna's pastimes, but they accept Krishna speaking in the battle of Kurukshetra, but they do not accept anything else. So it is all coming from their lack of devotion, or because of their animosity towards the Lord, which is the root cause of us first becoming bound in the material world, right? So very first time from that time when a living entity wants to enjoy independent of the Lord, does not want to accept him, then falls into the material world under the control of Maya. So to answer to your point, it is because they do not accept the Lord, his personality, and his pastimes are described in many of the Puranas, especially in Srimad Bhagavatam. That's why they don't accept it, and they're only focused on philosophy that is, pointing towards the impersonalistic ideas. Okay. So anyone else has any other question? Okay. So well, then thanks everyone. Again, if you have any questions later on, please feel free to send those to me. Okay. And I'll try to respond to the best of my capability. Thank you once again. Hare Krishna. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Shyam.